else that's going to speak tonight to do so from this lectern, because I purposely moved the volume up a bit and made it so that you should be able to be heard without having to yell or scream.
All right, so,
Okay.
so to start with, I don't know how you usually don't come on
Yeah,
Friday
right, sure.
night, so,
Well, don't worry about usual. What would you like to do?
well, when you.
Usually I give some words of introduction, and then we would go right to candlelight. And we used to do our opening song, but we've sort of stopped doing.
So,
Yeah.
for the candlelighting, when I come up with, you can call on the, the Women's Torah Study Scholar and Residence Committee.
Okay.
And that consists of Margaret and the, let's see, that's the name.
Ah.
You don't have to tell people.
No, I mean we can also save just on one side, if that's it. Kathy, can you do me a favor? We just need to hold back the first few rows on this side for our guests. So can you just make sure if anybody? I doubt anybody's going to try to sit there, but.
Do you want us to move?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, Margaret.
So then, I'm gonna come up with them. I'm going to read a poem.
Great.
And then I'll come down, I'll also be Margaret.
Okay.
And the committee, which is Margaret, Myra, Sue Warter was not here. Oh, yes, one.
Okay.
You want to invite him to say so Myra, Margaret,
Right.
Shelley, and I. And Shelley said, oh, she doesn't want to come up, and I said, you must come up.
Okay. Even if we acknowledge, right? Same thing with Sue.
So we'll, and
Okay.
Sue.
So poem comes first. Lighting is second. Right. You're going to read the poem first.
Yes, but the poem is about lighting candles.
Sure. No, of course.
You've heard it before.
So my suggestion would be to invite everybody up. You read the poem, and then.
That's what, yes, I think, yes, if you ask
Perfect.
everyone,
Great.
read the poem.
Okay.
And you'll light the candle.
Great.
And after that, it's just the regular service.
Sure.
We have nothing else, unless there's somebody, unless you
The
have
ol-
any other honors.
The only other thing that I would say is introducing her and the bio, which I can certainly do with no problem. But if you wanted to give that to somebody, that's
Shelley said that you do that very nicely, so we'll give you the honor.
all right. That's certainly fine.
No, you know what, the thing is, Dan, I like to feature women at this because it's
Oh, I do
Women's
too.
Torah Study.
Yeah.
But, you're an honorary member of Women's
certainly,
Torah
but
Study.
I think
You and who else? And Brad Teffer.
yes, right.
He's
No,
the
no,
only
he's
one
right.
that we've invited to belong.
Right. No. I think very much understood. And so I think for
Whenever you want to.
yeah, that would be right before before I invite her up to speak. So I'll do that. And if that changes, if you decide somebody walks through the door and you say, oh, it's the perfect person to do it, it's no problem. And I have it printed out and all that.
I think tomorrow is a whole other thing. 'Cause
Oh yes. Oh yeah. So we'll check in before, and I can print out even a little list so that we can just make sure we've got everything.
When I got home, I didn't know who was doing what. Because she was going to make some calls. But I do know that Fran Godfrey is going to
I do the Haftarah. Great. Great.
And then we'll see if Leticia and what's her name, David, is it Wasserman come?
Adam.
Adam.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
right. If they come, then he
Do
likes
odd
to
one.
look for tourists, you can dress it, or if Sari and Doyle come, people who come.
And also like
For people who come pretty
Yeah. Exactly.
tourist stuff,
Exactly.
because I think that is
That's
important
exactly
to
correct.
acknowledge that.
Exactly correct.
And,
Exactly correct.
I see Judy Holland is going to be here.
Oh, great.
And I'm so happy that Mimi Levy is here, from the book.
Sure.
So we have a nice
No, absolutely.
representation.
I think that's great. And then the last thing was, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Looking exactly the same.
When you were walking the ordination, you were already past, right? You got a chance to so nice to see you too. Great to see you. Very nice to see you as well. Shabbat shalom. Welcome. So nice to meet you. Really. So, we sort of sit here and save you, seats in the fringe area, but that's always a very particular feeling. Catholic family tends to sit in the last row, so that's it's also an advantage of being tall. You can see over. But I'll leave you guys wherever you're most comfortable. good thing about this room is because it's, it carries sound beautifully without really much need. But unfortunately, it's the one thing we can't avoid.
Is there a way to move it? Will it not pick me up? So that there's a plausible deniability?
Probably where like there wouldn't be some obvious that still exists. You know, in other words, for
It's just because this is straight in my face.
the only thing I can think of, which I not doesn't matter for tonight, we have like a regular stand which I could put more off to the side and then just kind of sneak it into the corner. I would do that. You're right, and I'll just I have to mess around with a few things, but I think that should work.
And if not, you know, we're going to air tours that might work for you.
Then we'll make it. Yeah, so I can send it to you.
You've never been here before. We've moved into a neighborhood.
Look, everybody must be down. So, no need to be. Yeah. And you're here for a also we have somebody so I ordained to see, I went to University of Wisconsin. My brother went to JPS, so between the two of us, the RFC, the instructions. One of the possibilities. Ask my dad, and actually, one of my predecessors, Rabbi Gilbert, he was somewhere out here. So, we have a really nice meeting afterwards. Stick around and talk. Love it. Less and face less. Oh, I don't. Good question. No, it's not. Everything is. No, it's not. And it's part of the reason why I remember it very well. But faith and less. Faith. I got it. You got it. You got it. My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay. Yes, third row should be absolutely fine. All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's a good and robust Shabbat Shalom. We'll try it one more time. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, even better. You're just putting on airs to impress my professor. That's all it is. So before we begin, before I say anything else about anything else, let's all just take a moment, turn to the people around you, wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Especially if you don't recognize them or know them, introduce yourselves. Very important. So this is a Shabbat we look forward to every Shabbat. Okay, like children, we don't play favorites. But at the same time, I've been looking forward to this Shabbat for a very long time because a very dear friend, one of my greatest teachers, someone who had really beyond probably your awareness, a tremendous impact on my life in those moments, in those days years ago, and through this moment. And I've wanted to be able to bring Rabbi Dr. Wendy Zierler to our community since I got here. And it's really only because of the work of some very special people in this room that it really, really happened. So I first want to start with this row and a few people who are going to be here in a few moments. So in addition to Dr. Zierler, her wonderful husband Daniel is here. And we also, of course, have Amichai, their son. And then, not here yet, but coming soon, we want to thank Julian and Meg Zelizer, who are hosting our wonderful family tonight. And of course, Abigail, thank you for being here tonight also. And just for being a part of this Shabbat, it means so much to me. And I also want to thank on our leadership side of things, and for those that don't know, maybe some of you are here with us for the first time, many years ago we began a program at our temple using a remarkable book, a remarkable resource, the Torah, a Women's Commentary, which you have copies in your pew in front of you in green. And we began not just using it as our primary resource, but making sure that one Shabbat every month, we were using it as really our main method of learning Torah. And equally important, that Torah would be taught by a member of our community from, again, from our women, our leadership here, and of which over the years I've had the privilege of learning from dozens, again, of our remarkable teachers just within our community here. But I do want to acknowledge especially, I know Ruth is somewhere in the room, Ruth Joseph. I want to acknowledge Leah Oppenheimer and Margaret Bromberg, who really got us started in the right direction. But there are many others in this room who have continued, of course, to support this wonderful effort. And part of that effort has been also to bring in a preeminent scholar, someone to come, especially during the summer months when we are at our fullest, to help to teach us and to lead us. And I have many other things to say and a proper introduction to come in just a little bit. But I will just say, Professor Zierler was my Hebrew professor. Do not hold it against her based on my Hebrew skills. If I have any skills at all, it's only because of her. And my Jewish literature professor, of which I believe I won one of the prizes that year, which I can only assume was because of you. I still have no idea. But let me just tell you, in all of my life, I never, ever would have assumed that I would win an award, let alone for something to do with Jewish literature. Again, only because of this remarkable person, this remarkable teacher. And in our tradition, the reverence we have for our teachers, for the people who take the time to instruct us, is at the very, very top of the list, only below really, the reverence we hold for our parents. And when we show that reverence, part of what we are trying to do is to show everyone else, give them even a little bit of a sense of the privilege of what it means to learn with a true scholar, a true teacher of Torah in its biggest sense. So for me, again, I have been looking forward to this for a very long time, and I'm going to stop talking so that we can get to her wonderful brilliance and words in just a little bit when we get to the service a little bit later. And before we get to any of that, we're going to light and bless our Shabbat candles. And for this, we're going to invite up some of those leaders, again, of our Women's Torah Commentary Scholar in Residence Committee. So if I can ask Margaret Bromberg, Myra Peskowitz, although I know she's not here, she is certainly here in spirit, Sue Wartor. Shelley, Sue is here? Sue's here. Yes, no, Sue's not here. I was going to say, I would have known if Sue was here for sure. Our wonderful executive director and Hebrew School director, Shelley Lichtenstein, and of course, Ruth Joseph. And Ruth will also be reading a poem for us just before we light candles. If you want to follow along, the candle lighting can be found on page 120. And just as one last word, for those that, again, are joining us for the first time here or haven't been here in a while, we continue to light 2 sets of Shabbat candles, one set for us here in Sag Harbor and one for those still held in hostage and in bondage in Gaza, who we hope each week will be able to return home and to be able to light the candles for themselves again. So Ruth, if you would do us the honor of starting us off with your poem, and then we will invite the committee to light and bless our candles.
I'm just going to wait till they sit.
That's okay. She's waiting. She's waiting. It's okay. We'll take your time. What, are you all rushing to get somewhere? People, come on. Shabbos moves slowly. It's okay.
This is a poem called Not Every Day by Shifra Alon. Not every day does one encounter God, and not at every moment can one give oneself to prayer, nor can every hour be an hour of loving kindness. A person wanders and strays before reaching the journey's end. We start over again, and again we lose our way, groping and searching for our forgotten path. But they, those who search and wonder, God seeks them out with candles.
Amen. Sure, we could, absolutely.
Blessed art thou, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who blesses us with thy commandments and commands us to kindle the Sabbath nights.
Amen. Thank you all so much for lighting candles tonight, and thank you all so much for your leadership and for, again, your tremendous and tireless efforts to bring us brilliance and wisdom and Torah. We thank you all, and just as you're finding your seats, we'll turn to page 130 for Kabbalat Shabbat, beginning at the very top of the page. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, Naria, letzuri, shenu nekad mafana vetoda. Naria, Naria, letzuri, shenu mizmirot Naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. We're now on page 131, Shiru l'Adonai, just towards the top of the page in Hebrew. Shiru l'Adonai, Shiru shir chadash, Shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai, baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, shiru shir chadash. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. We're now on page 132, Or Zarua, towards the very bottom of the page. Or Zarua la-tzadik, Ulehishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la-tzadik, Ulehishrei lev simcha. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, Ve'hodu lezecher kodsho. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, Ve'hodu lezecher kodsho. We turn now to the top of page 134. Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor v'kol zimra, b'chatzotzrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Yiram hayamum lo, tevel ve'yoshveva. Neharot imcha uchav yachad harim yiranenu lifnei Adonai kiva lishbot haaretz yishbot tevel betzedek ve'amim b'mei sharim Yiram hayamum lo tevel meyoshveva neharot yimchahu chaf yachad harim yiranenu. We're now on page 135, last Hebrew paragraph just in the middle of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. We'll turn now to the 29th Psalm on page 136. Mizmor leDavid Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai Mahim Rabim Adonai Mahim Rabim Kol Adonai Ba'koach Kol Adonai Behadar Kol Adonai Shover Harazim Vaishaber Adonai et Arzei Halvanon Vayarkidehem kemo hegel Levanon ve'Sirion kemo ben re'emim kemo ben re'emim Kol Adonai chotzev lahabotesh Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yecholel Ayalot, Vayechesof Yeharot Uvechalo, Kulo Merkavod, Kulo Merkavod, Kulo merkavod Adonai lama bo yashav vayeshev Adonai melech leolam Adonai oz lahamo yiten Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Turn now to L'chad Odi on page 138. And tonight we're going to do all 9 paragraphs. Okay, we're going to do all of them, not just our skipping around as usual, but for the final one, as always, we'll rise and we'll face the doors we walked through just a few moments ago. Again, page 138. L'chad Odi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela L'chad Odi Likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela Shamor v'zachor bedibur echad hishmianu
אל המיוחד אדוני אחד הוא שמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה קומי צאי מתוך אף רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה הוא יחמול עלייך חמלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה התנערי מעפר קומי לבשי בגדי תפארתך מעל יד בן ישי בן הלך מקרבה אל נפשי גאלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לא תבושי ולא תקמי מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי בך יחסו עניי עמי ונבנתה עיר אל תהילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה והיו לשמשו שעושייך ורחקו כל מבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך כמשוש חתן הקלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תעריצי על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. Okay, please be seated. We'll turn now to Tzadik Katamar, which is the Hebrew just as it indents in the page on page 140. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach Keres Bavanon Yizke Shetulim Beveit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Beseba Deshenim Verhananim Yihu Lehagid Ki Ashar Adonai rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144. Remain standing for the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman Kariv Eimeru Amen Yehesh Me Rabba Mevarach La'alam Li'al Me'al Maya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitbar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shemei Dekudsha Brichu Leila Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushmechata V'nechemata Tamiran Be'alma V'yimeru Amen. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. I know I've said this before, but I'll reiterate. There is a very particular joy to being the Shaliach Tzibor and facing this direction and getting to a responsive part of the service and hearing the voices respond to you, right? Because you never really know when you turn your back what will come. And in this congregation, to hear all your lovely voices, it means more than I could say. So we'll turn now to page 149, and we'll read together in English toward the very top of the page. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praised to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Umahavir yom umevilayla, umavdihil ben yom uven lahayla, Adonai tzvahot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hamari v'aravim. We'll turn now to page 151, and we'll read together in English toward the bottom of the page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Ki ehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'lahayla, Avatcha al tasir mimenu liolamim, Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Please join me on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam ve'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'hisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם Adonai Elohechem Emet. We'll read together now on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. As we turn to Michamocha on page 158. Yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai ba 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 ba, yabai bye bim bam, yabai ba 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 ba, yabai bye bim bam. Mi chamocha b'elohim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nor atihilot osefele, nor atihilot osefele. Yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai ba 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 ba, yabai bye bim bam, yabai ba 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 ba, yabai bye bim bam. Malachutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, v'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'golo miad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, gal Yisrael. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu is on the top of page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoeinu lechayim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. We turn to page 162, Veshamru, at the very top of the page. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam, ein beini ubein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat, Shabbat vayinafash. I invite us now to rise in body or in spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace. When you're finished at the end, if you're still standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel, yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. As we turn to page 371 for our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening, I want to invite all of us to take a few moments for ourselves to think of those that you are praying for tonight. They may be a lot of people, they may only be one person, God willing, none. And if it's none, then make space in your heart for others that you know could use a little bit of extra love tonight. So please take a moment, think of your loved ones, and then we'll join together in the Mishaberach on page 371. Mishaberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Now offer our prayer for Israel in time of war. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, you know that the Jewish people are one nation with one heart, and now that heart is broken. O healer of broken hearts, binder of their wounds, be with our brothers and sisters who've been taken captive and with the families of the victims. Watch over the hostages, break their bonds, and bring them out from darkness to light. Proclaim release to the captives, liberation to the imprisoned. Comfort the families, bring them under the shelter of your wings. Bring complete healing of body and spirit to all of the wounded. Bind up our wounds and grant us healing. Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, rock and redeemer of the people Israel, bless the state of Israel, the initial manifestation of our redemption. Shield it with your care, spread over it your shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend us. Crown their efforts with victory. Bless the land with peace, its inhabitants with lasting joy. Shomer Yisrael, guardian of Israel, strengthen and bless the defenders of Israel who stand guard on the land and the air and on the sea. May we see the promise of the psalmist realized. You turned my mourning into dancing, my sackcloth into robes of joy. God, protect, preserve, and restore peace and well-being to Israel, your people, and together we say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Okay, so I have two very, very quick personal anecdotes, but I have to say at the outset that Dr. Zierler is here this Shabbat much less because of being my professor and here because of your preeminent status in the world of Torah learning, and in particular in the role that you have played in feminist Torah learning and bringing again a perspective that was held back from our people for thousands of years. And the contributions that you and others have made to the field in general and to the specific work of the Torah Women's Commentary stands far above and beyond anything that I can certainly put into words. But I do, at the same time, have a personal relationship, and I just want to give you two small indications of just how quickly I became enamored with Dr. Zierler, Rabbi Dr. Zierler, in my time. The first, which you may not remember, and I believe it was in Hebrew class, I was put in beginner's Hebrew, and they gave us the best teacher for sure. And at some point, you made a reference to, and this is going to go over the heads of most of the people in the room, but to the very important film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and to the Circle K that I believe existed in Hong Kong. Okay, so making a reference like that to a person of my generation, right, immediately I knew this was somebody cool, okay? Very important. But the second story is much more important. At some point or another, towards the end of one of the semesters, I believe you had all the students come and read for you in your office. And as you can imagine, as a student, still one trying to grasp the Hebrew language, sitting in your professor's office, trying to read is a very intimidating thing. And make no bones about it, I certainly made my share of mistakes. But Dr. Zierler didn't say, oh, these are all the mistakes that you made. She made an observation, one that actually changed the trajectory of my relationship to the language of Hebrew, which is that she noticed and suggested the possibility that I actually have an issue of tracking with my eyes. That Hebrew, unlike English, right, which doesn't have vowels above and below and all these other things, normally you're reading in a straight line this way. But for some people, there is a challenge of going up and down and up and down and up and down in this way. And it's not that I went to find a teacher to fix that problem necessarily, but it showed me that there was something I was doing, something I could do to help myself and to engage with the language in a deeper way. And this is, again, comes from a master teacher. Only somebody who is trained to look and to identify and to notice these kinds of details, that's what teaching is about. That's what I learned amongst the many other technical things I learned, the philosophy behind her work as a professor, as a teacher, and ultimately, again, as a rabbi. All of these things are gifts, innate gifts, and gifts that you shared with me, and I'm very excited to be able to share with our congregation. And if you'll indulge me, a little bit of bio so that you'll know from whom we are learning tonight. Rabbi Dr. Wendy Zierler is the Sigmund Falk Professor of Modern Jewish Literature and Feminist Studies at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in New York City. Prior to joining HUC-JIR, she was a research fellow in the English department of the University of Hong Kong. She received her PhD and her MA from Princeton University, her BA from Stern College of Yeshiva University, and an MFA in fiction writing from Sarah Lawrence College. In June 2021, she received rabbinic ordination from Yeshivat Maharat. She is the author of Movies and Midrash, Popular Film and Jewish Religious Conversations, and Rachel Stole the Idols, The Emergence of Hebrew Women's Writing. And, as we will learn, other things coming up. And she has also written many articles in the fields of Jewish literature and Jewish gender studies, and in 2017, she was appointed co-editor of Proof Texts, a journal of Jewish literary history, a leading scholarly journal in the field of Jewish literature. It is my honor and my privilege to welcome up my friend, my teacher, Rabbi Dr. Wendy Zierler, to share some words of Torah with us this evening.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So a little story about Rabbi Daniel Geffen. Rarely do you have the opportunity when you teach to have a student who basically smiles the entire class. That was my experience of you. It made it much easier for me to get up every morning knowing that there would be this glowing, ebullient face in front of me. So we've dubbed this weekend Feminism in the Wilderness because we are starting a new book this week, the book of Bamidbar. The Torah portion, the title Torah portion, Bamidbar, which we're reading this week, literally means in the wilderness. And this portion is obsessed, I would argue, with familial connections and continuities. Words like mishpacha, family, Beit Avotav, the house of the fathers, Toldot, familial generations. Words like that proliferate all over the parasha. And what these repetitions emphasize is how important in the wilderness it is, in the wilderness where one lacks all other trappings of normalcy and civilization, how important it is to be connected to a family or to a clan. In the Bible, the wilderness is a site of insecurity, of death, of disconnection, but it's also the site of revelation, group formation, and divine care. It's in the wilderness that we receive the Torah and other mitzvot, such as tzitzit, with its special ritual ties and connections that remind us about the Torah and the tradition. And so with all this in mind, the challenges, the dual nature of the wilderness, I want to spend my minutes with you tonight engaging with my own metaphorical sense and experience of wilderness that came from extreme loss, extreme familial loss, and the weekly regimen of study and teaching that I took on in the wake of that loss as a way of reconnecting to family, my own personal family and my memories of my parents, but also the larger family of Israel. And this is the subject of my forthcoming book. You have a picture of the title of this book, which will be coming out at the end of the summer, called Going Out with Knots. And so part of what I'm going to be doing tonight is explaining that odd title to you. And how much it means to me. So here I have to share a sad story. On March 12th, 2019, my beautiful, beloved father, David Zierler, was hit by a distracted truck driver and immediately killed as he was making his way from his car into a coffee shop to meet a friend. At the end of January 2020, less than 5 days before what was supposed to be the end of the Kaddish for my father, my mother died. 6 weeks after that, exactly a year after my father's death, on March 12th, 2020, you may recall, the coronavirus engulfed all of New York and the world and basically hurled all of us into a kind of wilderness. This period also happened to overlap with my 3 years of study toward Orthodox rabbinical ordination. And so this period was folded into a larger thought process and meditation about what it meant to be connecting myself to a sphere and to a tradition where women had been absent for centuries. Like many traditional Jews, for the first 30 days of mourning for my father, I adopted the practice of daily study of Mishnah. The reason most commonly given for the study of Mishnah during this period of time is that the word Mishnah, which is a unit of Talmudic study, has the same letters as the word neshama, which means soul. So together with Kaddish recitation, the study of Mishnah is traditionally understood as a way of being able to elevate the soul of the departed. The practice is to divide up the different tractates of the Mishnah, there are 63 of them, among different family members and friends, so that by the end of the 30 days, you will have been able to finish the entire set of Mishnah as a way of honoring your departed loved one. What I chose was to study Tractate Shabbat, the laws of Shabbat, because of my father's very special relationship with Shabbat observance. My family, I was born in a small town in Western Ontario, and my family decided to give up a very good business and a way of life that they loved and were used to for two reasons. Number one, to be able to send my siblings and me to Jewish schools, and so that my father could stop working on Shabbat. And I felt that this would be a very special tribute to him to be able to study the laws of Shabbat in his memory. I want to tell you a story about a particular experience I had over the course of my studying of Mishnah in my father's memory, because this experience, in a sense, launched the entire project of my book. So it was a Friday morning at the end of March, just a few weeks after my father's death, and I was staying with my still shocked, bereaved mom, who knew that I prayed every morning with a talit, and so she gave me my father's talit to be able to take to synagogue that morning. I often took the opportunity in the downtime of prayer. In a traditional synagogue, there's the repetition of the Amidah, so that's quite a bit of downtime. So I often took the opportunity at that time in the service to study the Mishnah. And the Mishnah that I happened to study that very morning, the first time I wore my father's talit, was the following. It's source number 1 on your handout, and I promise you this happened. I didn't make it up. Okay, so the Mishnah, the context of this Mishnah is the prohibition against carrying objects from a private domain to a public domain or a public domain to a private domain on Shabbat, because that was considered work. If you think about what it would mean to haul like wood or water right? So caring was a form of work. So the rabbis in the 6th chapter of Tractate Shabbat are trying to figure out what constitutes clothing, because you're allowed to wear clothes, what constitutes clothing, and what constitutes accessories that are like clothing, and what's other stuff that you wouldn't be allowed to carry. And so they say that young boys, banim yotzim biksharim, that sons or boys can go out with knots. The question is, what are these knots exactly? And why can only the boys wear the knots and not the girls? That morning, as I was studying the Mishnah, I read the commentary of the Bartanura, that's Abraham of Bertinuro, who is a 15th century exegete. And he explained, based on his learning of the Talmud, the Gemara on this Mishnah, that what this was as follows. If a boy misses his father, the father would take a strap from his right shoe and tie it either to the boy's left shoe or the left arm, and that way it would quell the longings of the son, a kind of talisman to make the boy not miss his daddy. And in Hebrew, this commentary said, "Ulahachi tani habanim she'en levanot gaguim al avihen kemo habanim." And why does it say the sons? Because daughters don't miss their fathers like sons do. So here I was in synagogue, wearing my father's talit for the very first time, still very much in the throes of grief for this delicious, wonderful man. And I was being told that I, as a daughter, don't miss my dad. And if that weren't bad enough, later commentary specified that it was specifically in instances where the father had died, like that this knot would be applied. So these 3 words, habanim yotzim biksharim, sons go out with knots, they reverberated and knocked against my head throughout those 30 days of mourning, making my grief worse than it already was, making me feel that there was an impediment to me being able to connect to my family and to the world that my father held so dear. And so it is that after the conclusion of the 30 days, when we had finished studying all of the Mishnah, I decided that I would adopt a different learning practice, where every week I would choose and translate and then teach and write about a different modern Hebrew poem. I called this practice Shir Chadash Shel Yom, new poem of the day, and this practice has now come on 6 years long, where I've been writing about a different poem every week. The first 2 years of that have come together in the form of this book, Going Out with Knots, which is basically a Kaddish memoir through Hebrew poetry. What I've prepared to share with you today is just a sampling of some of the poems that I have taught. I'm not going to be able to go through all of them in detail. I have respect for your time. Nevertheless, I wanted to give you a sense of what this book is about. And what I've chosen are 3 poems that all have to do with this theme of going out with knots. So the first poem speaks very directly to the Mishnah that I mentioned. It's a poem by my former colleague, Ruchama Weiss. She's the only living poet in the book. She is a remarkable figure, a Talmud scholar, a pastoral educator, and a poet, a novelist as well. And it was 2 years after I started this project, 2 years after I met this Mishnah, that I found this poem by Ruchama, who had become a very close friend of mine by then. I had done a private one-on-one class with her during my Maharat rabbinical studies. And so I found this poem where she directly responds to this Mishnah, and in fact to the Talmudic commentary on this Mishnah. The poem is called, it's number 4 in your handout, the 4th source. It's called Lament for Rashi's Daughters. And what she was responding to actually was Rashi's particularly devastating commentary on the Gemara about this Mishnah. First, if you look at the top, I'm only going to treat the epigraph, the 2 epigraph parts in the poem. She quotes from The Gemara on this Mishnah: when a son has longings for his father, the father takes a strap from his right shoe and ties it on the boy's left. And then Rashi glosses further about these longings. The son longs for his father and thus cannot separate from him. But this remedy is irrelevant for daughters, as fathers don't show much fondness for them at their outset, such that they would ever really end up missing them. What Ruchama Weiss's poem highlights is the bitter irony of Rashi's comments, given what we know about Rashi's daughters. Rashi, by the way, had no sons, only daughters. When I refer to Rashi, I hope you... Rashi was Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki of Troyes, a very important commentator on the Bible and also the Talmud. Wrote really the central commentary on both. So Rashi had no sons. He had these amazing daughters who did the work of transcribing all of this commentary. And so Ruchama asks, is it possible that these wonderful daughters of Rashi actually were forced to transcribe this particular commentary about how fathers never show enough fondness to their daughters from even when they're babies, that the daughters would ever come to miss their fathers? One would think if they had read that, it's kind of rude, if they had read that it would drive them away. And yet, what do we know about Rashi's daughters? Nothing drove them away. They remained incredibly dedicated to their father's project of Torah education, of commentary. And his daughter's sons became Rashi's preeminent disciples. And so if he was trying to drive them away, he didn't succeed. And the legend that one often hears, that Rashi's daughters themselves prayed wearing talit and tefillin, basically symbolically reflects their efforts to keep on tying themselves to Torah and to their father's teaching, even under these circumstances where it seems like the tradition is trying to turn them away. That's the first poem that I wanted to share. The second is a poem by Yehuda Amichai. I hope that you're familiar with Yehuda Amichai, perhaps the best known modern Hebrew poet because of how widely translated he is into English. And this is the poem that I taught on the last day of my Kaddish recitation for my mother. Now, let's be honest. Saying Kaddish with a minyan 3 times a day for 22 months, which is what I did, is not such an easy thing to do. It's quite onerous. It involves running a lot from work to shul and getting up first thing in the morning and running, right, and trying to be there. And so there is a certain sense of relief, if I'm being honest, when it comes to an end. And yet at the same time, there's this tremendous sense of loss when you can't say those words anymore, that becomes so instinctive, that becomes so habitual. It comes to that moment in the prayer and you find yourself muttering those words and you're not supposed to, right? And so I knew that I needed some sort of reassurance that even though this period of mourning, formal mourning, was coming to an end, that I would be able to maintain that sense of connection. What Kaddish affords a mourner is this opportunity at those various touch points during the day to connect to your departed loved ones. And so I chose to teach this poem by Yehuda Amichai, which is called Whoever Wrapped in a Talit. Number one, because it deals with the memory of wearing a talit. But number two, because it shows the impossibility of breaking certain ritual habits and forgetting their impact. So I'm going to read the poem in English, say a very few things, and then move on to the next one. And some of you may have heard of this poem before, because it's a famous one. Whoever was wrapped in a talit in youth will never forget taking it out of the soft velvet bag, opening the folded talit, spreading it out, kissing the length of the neckband, some neckbands embroidered, others trimmed in gold. After that, with a great unfurling overhead like a sky, a wedding canopy, a parachute, and then winding it around your head as if playing hide and seek. And then wrapping your whole body in it so close, tucking into it like a cocoon of a butterfly, then opening up as if with wings to fly. And why is the talit striped and not checkered, black and white, like a chessboard? Because squares are finite and hopeless. Stripes come from endlessness and go to endlessness, like runways in an airport where angels land and take off. Whoever has wrapped in a talit will never forget when you climb out of the swimming pool or the sea, you wrap in a large towel, spread it out again over your head, and again tuck into it so close and still shiver a bit and laugh and bless. So I imagine you'll all be thinking about this poem the next time you go to the beach, right? The speaker of this poem, like Yehuda Amichai himself, has left the religious fold. And yet all of the intimate sensations of religious observance remain with him, transmuting, right, into other figurative or secular forms as he moves from childhood to adulthood, from the holy to the mundane, from cocoon to butterfly, from geometry to physics to aeronautics, right? And then to metaphysics, to mysticism and religion, and then back to the mundane and everyday with the comparison between donning of talit and putting a beach towel around you. I was especially drawn to this poem that week when I stopped saying Kaddish for my mom, because it held out the promise of continuity despite the end of the Kaddish experience. Things change, but a thread of connection can be tied between the old and the new. So now the third poem that I want to share, which really speaks to the feminism theme. And this one I'm going to read in Hebrew and in English. It's, even if you don't understand Hebrew, the sound is what matters. And I'm sure you will hear the sound that I want y'all to pay attention to. A few things about this poet, Rachel Luzzatto Morpurgo, whose dates are 1790 to 1871. I know that Ruth Joseph is in the house, and she reminded me that she has a copy of my first book. So this figure, Rachel Luzzatto Morpurgo, figures prominently in my first book because she was the first modern Hebrew woman poet. In fact, the first female author that we know of ever, first to publish a book of Hebrew poems. She was born in Trieste, to the famed Luzzatto family. Her great uncle was the poet and Kabbalist Moses Chaim Luzzatto. Her first cousin was the philosopher and Enlightenment educator, the poet Shmuel David Luzzatto. And in fact, Shmuel David was her study partner for many years. Her scholarly family and these connections made it possible for her to have the kind of Jewish education that was really not typical for a woman of her day. She was conversant in the Bible, in the Talmud, in Kabbalah. She was capable of writing rhymed, metered, highly structured, learned, elusive Hebrew poetry, and she was the only woman of her time who could do that. In fact, that when she published the poems that she did in this journal, Enlightenment journal called Kochvei Yitzchak, she was the only woman's voice in the whole thing. And what I want to pay attention to in reading this poem with you is not just that she was the only woman among all these men, but that she also took the trouble and the time to represent the experience of other women and her relationship with other women. In fact, the poem that I'm sharing with you is the first poem that we know of that a woman ever wrote about another woman in the Hebrew language. It was a poem written on the occasion of the marriage of her cousin Rachel to a man with the surname Sulam, and it was written as she was about to move from Trieste to Padua. So it's a poem that's marking, it's registering a change and a disruption and a possible fear of disconnection. If you think about what travel was like in those days, and, no FaceTime, right? No email. And so this is what she wrote. I'm going to read the poem for you in Hebrew. She wrote on the occasion of this marriage and impending move. The poem first in Hebrew. Rachel im Rachel niksheret, ke'anak ale gargeret, ahavatech li tiferet, al roshi hinach כותרת. טוב טעמך מכל פרפרת, לי ינעם, אך את סותרת החברה, להיות נבחרת מסולם אל עיר אחרת. שירה זאת הינה מזכרת, אהבה להיות נהדרת, הומיה אני שוררת, יום אל יום אשמע איגרת, דברי שלום שם אוגרת, לשלמה רחל עטרת. In English. And this is the poem for the aforementioned bride upon her leaving Trieste to join her groom in Padua. This one shall be called My Delight is with Her. Rachel and Rachel are connected like a necklace to a neck. Your love is my laurel, on my head a crowning glory. To me your wisdom is prized above all dessert, but you're leaving our small cohort to be lifted tall on a ladder in another capital. This poem is a memento of love now absent, longingly I chant. Daily shall I send mail, bearing greetings to regale Solomon and his jewel, Rachel. So our tradition, Jewish tradition, Hebrew literary tradition, offers next to nothing, I gotta tell you, on women's friendships, on the relationship between women. For example, we know about a relationship between Leah, the biblical Leah, and her sister Rachel, but what is the nature of that relationship? It's largely rivalry and competition over Jacob, affections of Jacob, and who can provide more kids, right? Sons. Another example, the co-wife or wife handmaiden stories of Sarah and Hagar, or Hannah and Penina. Not happy stories, right? They're emphasizing bitter competition rather than friendship. And so what makes this poem for this bride so remarkable is that it's by a woman for another woman. And it's filled with all of these references to the loving relationship between God and Israel, but transmuted into the loving relationship between a woman and her close cousin and friend. Now I'll give you an example of one of the references that she uses, but changes in an interesting, canny way. There's a comparison at the very beginning of the poem to their relationship being like a necklace on a neck. That reference derives from Proverbs 1:9, and it's about how one should hold tight to the wisdom imparted by one's mother and father. Here, of course, it's holding tight to the wisdom imparted by your female friend, by that relationship. Now, add to this the meaning, the special meaning of names in this poem. We're going to be talking a lot about names tomorrow. Rachel and Rachel. The fact that these two women shared the same name, and that name they shared with the patriarch Rachel, it connects them across time and across geography. And of course, the challenge that this poem is grappling with is how you maintain a connection when someone is absent, when someone is geographically not, remote rather than nearby. I hope you listened as I was reading to the consistent rhyme, eret, 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 eret. I tried in my translation to reproduce some of it, but it's really hard to write a poem like that where every line ends the same way. Now, why does she do that? Why does she do that? She does that a rhyme scheme because she is trying to create a sense of continuity and consistency at the very moment when that continuity and consistency is being interrupted by this major change. What she is doing by repeating that sound over and over again is, in a sense, praying herself, chanting herself into a sense of continuity, right? A sense of connection. She uses words and sounds to affect a link. And that's, in effect, what Kaddish does too. When any prayer that we repeat over and over again, there are many prayers, by the way, that if you go to synagogue 3 times a day, you're saying over and over again. Ashrei, it's nice, but do you really want to say it like 3-4 times a day? Aleinu, those same prayers. Why do we repeat them? Why do we say Kaddish over and over again? Because it's a way, in a sense, of chanting yourself into a sense of being tied, of being connected to community and to tradition, even in the wilderness of loss. So my hope in sharing these texts with you today is to bring you into this web of connection that I experienced and that we aspire to create in synagogues through the experience of Jewish ritual, enshrining a broader sense of mishpacha, not only to our immediate family, but also to the broader people of Israel, especially now, when we're wandering in the wilderness of current events, shall we say, where we're wandering and yet looking forward, God willing, to a promised land of better days, both here in the United States and in the state of Israel. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
The sad irony of being a student is that you're constantly looking to being done with being a student. And then, right, you finish being a student, and then all you want to do is go back to being a student. What I would give to go back to class, but this is the closest thing. So you all get even a little bit of a sense of what my day-to-day experience was. And what a remarkable teaching, what a remarkable way to start our Shabbat together with you, Dr. Saylor. Thank you for that. And much more learning to come, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in our announcements, but thank you so much. So before we get to Aleinu, we will mark our last opportunity to count the Omer together as a community before Shavuot. So I'll invite us all to rise as we turn to page 570. 570. Hineni mukhan u'mezuman l'kayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer. I am ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom shmona v'arba'im yom shehem shisha shavuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. Today marks 48 days, which is 6 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. We remain standing as we turn to page 586 at the bottom of the page, Aleinu l'shabeach. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tefilah liotzer breshit shelo asanu kiduyei ha'aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chalkeinu kahem v'goralenu kechol hamonam v'anachnu kornim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 591. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Now invite those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit, to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. In our community, we think of those who've passed in recent months: Heather Abrams, David Amanoff, Stephen Dickman, Judith Berry Emanuel, Harry Fadum, Michael Fagenbaum, Sharon Lee Goldblatt, Barbara Goldfarb, Harry Heller, David Carlin, Morris Kramer, Ann Lieber, Jeanette Meyerowitz, Jeffrey Miller, Phyllis Rowan, Gloria Sapiro, Ronald Tempowski, Randy Wasserman, and Joel Wintner. We also mark the yahrzeit that occurred during the last week for Norwin Becker, Miriam Brandolini, Sylvia Burt, Luis Crandall, Barbara Friedman, Jewel Gumbel, Samuel Hurwitz, Aaron Knopf, Gertrude Landberg, Meyer Levine, Samuel Lewis, Florence Pomeroy, Lisa Shaneswit, Sam Siegelwax, Blanche Stiglitz, Barbara Strasser, Rachel Waldman, and Charlotte Wolk. In addition to those names that I just shared, is anyone else saying Kaddish for anyone we didn't mention?
Ann Brunswick. Karen Whipple, Susan Lubert, Sebastian Salgadon.
I invite the mourners to join with me on page 598, and if it's your custom to rise alongside them, you may do so at this time. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, Bagala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba mevarach la'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. And again, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. My gratitude, of course, again to our scholar in residence for this weekend, Rabbi Dr. Wendy Zierler, and of course, my great thanks to your wonderful family and to the Zelzer family for hosting. Julie and Meg, thank you so much for doing that and for helping to make all of this possible. And of course, I want to thank the leadership of our Women's Torah Commentary Torah Study. Tonight, we're acknowledging our committee members, especially Leah Oppenheimer, Myra Peskowitz, Ruth Joseph, Margaret Bromberg, Sue Wartor, and of course Shelley Lichtenstein. But of course we all know that that is a wide ring around that also of teachers and supporters, people who've been a part of this wonderful teaching opportunity for many years. We thank all of you for your hard work in helping to bring this amazing, amazing Shabbat to us and to our community. And with that, as I said, learning will continue. We'll have our opportunity to learn again twice with Rabbi Dr. Zieler tomorrow, once during our service delivering the drash, and also in Torah study as well. And before we get to any of that, of course, we want to welcome you all next door for our Oneg Shabbat, which again will be located in our community room, which is our HUCJIR community room, which I'm not sure if you knew. So there is also that great connection to our wonderful HUC, which we love, and a lot of wonderful food. The only thing I will ask is, of course, for our guests, let's please let them eat and do as they need to do. I know you all want to ask questions and come give hugs and congratulations, but we also want to make sure that our guests are treated well. It's very important here in our community, so please give them a little bit of space. As you notice when you're walking through, it's also a little bit tight next door, so let's all just be kind to each other, take our time, make sure, and if there's any problems, you need anything, come find me or Shelley, and we'll help out as best as we can. Reminder also, just a few other things coming up. This Sunday will be, Leah, is it this Sunday or next Sunday? This Sunday will be our next lay-led Sunday morning minyan on Zoom at 9:30. Again, that's welcome and open to all. Our Rosh Chodesh group will be meeting at 2 o'clock here at the temple. Please contact Ellen Ruby if you'd like more information about Rosh Chodesh. Also, a reminder, Erev Shavuot begins Sunday night. From the last time I checked the RSVP list, and I'm not trying to, make anybody feel guilty, but I only saw 3 names on that list, people. 3 names coming to Shavuos. Here we are talking about Torah. We got to get that number up a little bit. But as you know, we're going to be at JCOH across town in East Hampton. Rabbi Franklin and Rabbi Urbach from Gesher, the Bridge Shul. And the security requirements of JCOH are understandably strict, which means they must have names of people who are planning to attend. It's not too late. You can email me on Sunday morning. Let me know. I'll make sure they have your name. But please, anybody who's planning on coming, please bring a photo ID with you. It's very, very, very important. It starts at 7 o'clock. The plan is to end by 9 o'clock. So unless anyone thinks we're going all the way till the next morning, not happening. But we're going to do a lot of great learning with some wonderful colleagues, and I hope that you will join us. And then, of course, reminder that Monday morning service, the service of Shavuot, will begin at 10 o'clock here at the temple, and that service includes Yizkor as well. Last note, very important, join us Friday, June 13th, as we welcome some of our newest temple members in Kabbalat Shabbat services, followed by a vegetarian potluck Shabbat dinner. Please let Andrew Fagan know if you're coming, and you can bring a dish. If you're a new member, you don't have to bring food, okay? Just bring yourselves. We'll make sure to feed you. But please do join us. I'm sure I'm forgetting lots of other people to thank for all of their help, and if I've forgotten you, I apologize. But I always want to acknowledge Bob and Josie and all the work that they do also to make sure that we are able to do everything that we do here. So Josie, thank you, and you'll tell Bob that we showed him some love too, all right? So before we end our service and we go next door, did I forget anything else of major import? Okay, I'm sure I did, but you're all being generous and kind because my professor's here and you don't want to embarrass me. But we're going to sing together, and here we like to rise for this Shalom Aleichem, which is on page 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi melech malchei hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Remain standing for Kiddush, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, b'horei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav b'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lemahaseh v'reishit, ki hu yahom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Please come next door. Hope to see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Thank you, Josie. You. Outdo yourself. How? That was phenomenal. Even having read it a bit ahead of time, you couldn't have made any sense of it, and you brought it all together. It was so beautiful.
Thank you. Can I stash this here?
Anywhere.
'Cause I can't hear.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So
Put it
I
down
have-
here just so it's.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I have a solution for tomorrow, so we're all set.
Oh, good.